Emily had felt like her husband had been acting strange for a while now, and she had her suspicions, but could never come up with the evidence. Not until she found one particular Christmas photo from last year. She immediately knew that this was all she needed to file for a divorce from Tommy completely on her own terms. What was that man doing with his hands? What had her husband Tommy been keeping secret from her? But to better understand this situation, a bit of backstory is required. Before we start, can we get this video to 1,000 likes? Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. The Ericksons were a young family of 5. Emily, her husband, Tommy, and their 3 children. The young family was close and enjoyed each other's company. They had moved into their new home in Colorado only a few months ago, and things were going great. No one would expect it all to unravel. Although the Ericksons were a very close family, the truth was that none of the 3 children were biologically related to their father, Tommy. All 3 of them, however, were Emily's. Emily had given birth and raised them with her ex-husband, Stephen. That marriage had ended 2 years ago, and with good reason. One of the most challenging parts of marriage is keeping the union intact. Divorce is not a surprise anymore in today's society. However, it still does not deny the fact that the act and occurrence of such leads to a traumatic experience for children, especially during their formative years. The divorce had been messy and very chaotic for the family, but the marriage had not been any better. Stephen was a serial cheater and possessed a very manipulative attitude. For a long time, Emily had found herself trapped in his constant web of lies. But after a sudden crash in her reality had led to the truth. Stephen was a serial cheater. Once the truth of his infidelity was revealed, Emily could no longer trust Stephen, and soon she began to question everything he said. Emily was smart enough to take action after realizing what has happened within the relationship. With this new revelation, Emily was fed up with Stephen. Trying to listen to the explanation made Emily's gut uneasy. Emily filed for divorce and made it clear that she never wanted to see Stephen again. She explained that he was lucky she didn't tell the police. Stephen, however, didn't seem to care. He didn't even fight for partial custody. Usually, when divorces happen, the couple involved would literally changes the way they perceive the relationship. These changes can be as small as living arrangements. Others would be regarding their financial status and how the expenses will be handled. Emily decided that they needed a change of environment to adjust to life without Stephen. The family moved to Colorado. The first few months in Colorado were tricky. Emily wasn't used to being alone, and taking care of a family alone was very difficult. This is when Tommy entered the picture. Emily moved forward in her life, rather than sulking in the sadness of their depression. Emily had been in town for a few months and soon realized that she no longer had a social life to speak of. New town, new environment, a new life. She had spent the past months helping her kids adjust to their new school and life. Now that she was several miles away from her home, she needed some adult time. Emily and Tommy met at a local bar. Shortly after their meeting at the bar, the pair went on a first date together. The date was a success, and soon they were in a relationship. Emily and Tommy's relationship seemed to progress at an alarming rate. He was quickly introduced to the family and was seen as a more permanent member. But Emily had her doubts. Emily felt worried that their relationship was progressing too quickly, but she also feared that voicing her doubts would cause Tommy to distance himself. Emily was taken aback. Marriage was too big a commitment to rush into, especially after the disaster of her first marriage. Emily finally reconsidered, and after 3 months together, the pair tied the knot. Emily was excited about her new life with Tommy. It seemed for the first time in a while that she would be making some positive turns, but she couldn't help but still feel somewhat worried about the whole thing. It didn't help that her new husband was behaving a bit strangely. First, he surprised her and insisted on taking her last name, arguing that it would be easier for him to make the change than for her and the kids. Also, as the weeks went by, Emily couldn't shake the nagging thought that she didn't know much about Tommy. He never said much about his life before meeting her, and instead evaded all her probing. His story was that he was an only child who was orphaned shortly after he started college. He claimed he remained single after a short relationship in college and like her. He had recently moved to Colorado. This was why she had not questioned a lack of friends or family at their wedding. But now that all seemed suspicious. But every time Emily had a concern, she was able to explain it away logically, or found herself eager to maintain the happy home she had built for herself and her kids in Colorado. But how long could she live keeping her suspicions at bay? Emily had not known exactly how Tommy would respond, but she had not expected him to be so against the idea. He immediately shut down her plan once she expressed it, showing no willingness to consider it. Even more, he seemed to be angry at Emily. His anger increased as she tried to get him to calm down. Emily was caught off guard. She had never seen Tommy so angry before. The whole thing was a confusing experience for Emily. She thought everything was falling into place, but it was falling apart. Emily was very thoroughly upset. Her eyes began to fill with tears as she stared at Tommy in confusion. Finally, seeing what his rage was doing to Emily, Tommy took a step back and calmed his emotions. Apologizing, Tommy explained that his previous family situation was a difficult topic for him, and that he currently was barely in contact with them. He expressed how hurtful that time in his life had been, and that he simply was not ready to reconnect with the family that brought up so many bad memories for him. According to Tommy, meeting and falling in love with Emily and the kids had given him the opportunity to start fresh, and he would rather focus on that. But that wasn't all the shocking news Tommy had. Emily was convinced that she knew what was best for Tommy and felt that with the right effort and plan, she could certainly bring back the Christmas spirit in Tommy's life. Emily believed that if her plan worked, she would be able to convince Tommy to reconnect with his family. But how well would this go? The plan was simple. When Tommy headed to work, Emily would spend the day decorating the entire home with Christmas ornaments. She was certain it would bring some much-needed Christmas cheer, but would it? Emily grew more excited as the days went by. She decided to let the children in on her plans and felt it would be a great bonding Christmas experience for everyone. Emily had some family Christmas heirloom decorations that meant a lot to her and the kids. It was important to Emily that the kids be able to use the decorations once more, but unfortunately, the last person to see and handle them was her ex-husband. After hours of searching, Emily was blown away when her children signaled for her. They were all in the attic, and behind them were boxes filled with Christmas decorations stuffed away in a corner and hidden behind Tommy's box of luggage that he had brought with him, but he rarely touched. Turning to her youngest, Peter, and wanting him to be as much a part of the experience as his older siblings, she tasked him with bringing the boxes of decorations down from the attic. However, Peter was not sure what boxes were filled with the decorations and which ones belonged to Tommy. The young boy made a quick decision. He would open all the boxes and take a quick look to decipher which one of them was for Tommy, and which once had the decoration, but what he would find left him stunned. Peter couldn't believe his eyes. This was the best thing the young boy could have seen. Peter ran downstairs with the card, smiling from ear to ear as he made his way to his mother in the living room. "Mommy, Mommy, Tommy does like Christmas, look." Emily blinked in surprise to find Peter joyfully handing her a piece of paper. It was a card, but that was only the start of the revelation. Inside the card was a picture of Tommy and a young family. It's as if the plans were about to unravel, and it was going to be a success. It appeared that Tommy was pictured with what looked like his wife and kids. Emily was shocked. Tommy had told them he had been single for years when he met her, and he definitely didn't mention having a family before marrying her. Emily did her best to consider other possibilities, but the evidence was undeniable. Not only did the card date back to Christmas prior to this one, she also noticed Tommy wearing a wedding ring. Had he been still married less than a year ago? What was the truth? Hours after Emily had solidified her resolve to confront him, Tommy finally comes. He makes his way into the house as he usually did after his shift, but this time was different. Even before he had a chance to settle in, Emily made her appearance. Flinging the card in his face, she demanded to know the truth. Realizing what he held in his hands, he turned white in shock and began to stutter. He tries to quickly come up with an excuse but knows that there is no way out. He had been busted. He just cursed under his breath. He regretted not getting rid of the photo while he had the chance. He sighed. He knew he would have to fess up. He began to explain. Emily was right. He was still married last Christmas, but it wasn't a happy marriage. He and his ex-wife Donnie had been having problems for years when they called it quits. Tommy admitted that he had finally had the courage to end the unhappy union shortly after the picture was taken, but that was only the start of his problems. Danny had a lot of animosity towards Tommy and wanted to make him pay by getting full custody and making sure he would never see his children again. Even worse, with her lawyers, it became clear to Tommy that he would have no way of winning the custody battle. So Tommy came up with a drastic plan. That feeling of trying to avoid his problems was evident. He was going to disappear so that they could not make him pay child support. But Tommy wasn't done with the revelations. Tommy admitted that he had moved across the country a week after making the decision and hadn't looked back. This was where Emily came into the picture. Tommy really made sure to put everything in the relationship, and it worked. Emily fell head over heels in love with him, and they got married soon after. Emily listened in a state of shock. This also explained why Tommy had insisted on taking Emily's last name. Emily felt like a pawn. Emily was devastated by the revelation. Just as it had been with her ex-husband, Emily felt like her whole marriage to Tommy had been a lie. Even as he claimed he truly loved her, Emily could not help but see through the facade of his words. What Tommy had done was not fair to her, her children, and his previous family. She contacted her lawyer the very next day. Emily moved quickly. Her past experience with her ex had taught her a lot. She kicked Tommy out of the house and filed for divorce shortly after. A simple divorce without him having to pay child support and her keeping full custody over her children, leaving Tommy with no way to contest the divorce and forcing him to accept it. But there was something else. Emily's lawyer also made sure that Tommy's ex-wife Danny was informed of all that had transpired and provided with legal support so that she would be able to start her case against Tommy and demand from him what she was owed. Emily herself also had a conversation with Danny, and she painted a very different picture of Tommy than the one Emily was used to. Listening to Danny's side of the story only helped to confirm what Emily had suspected all along. She and her lawyer had been right to proceed with the divorce and bring Danny up to speed with the situation. She would finally get what she was entitled to. Her lawyer would see to that, and Emily could move on with her own life. Danny revealed, with the court documents to back up her statement, that she had not demanded full custody, but Tommy had not wanted anything to do with the children. Like Emily's ex, Tommy had been a serial cheater, and that had been the cause of their divorce. Emily could certainly sympathize and was glad that she could put Tommy behind her. But something else came out of the strange ordeal. Both Emily and Danny found that it was easier to lean on each other as they shared similar experiences. The two became the best of friends and started a new Christmas tradition where their families shared a joint and joyful Christmas with each other. Their story proves that ugly experiences lead to fulfilling connections.